Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's De-JOE-tional. We are going to continue with our book, If God is Love, Don't Be a Jerk. But first, I got a little update. I know I'm a day late in getting this out to you all. I tried to record it several times yesterday from Siteman with no luck. We were there yesterday so Susan could get her stem cells harvested. They collected more than they need. Everything went very well. Transplant is on schedule for next week. And with that, we want to thank you all for your Facebook comments and your texts and your thoughts and your prayers and well wishes and everything. It really means a lot to us that you're thinking about us and especially her during this time. So everything went well. But anyway, I was outside recording and it didn't really work out very well. So here we are today. So last week we talked about God gave us one job to do, and that's to love Him with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love each other as ourselves. And we tend to fall short of that because we put an asterisk on others. We don't really love others as ourselves like we should, like God has called us to do. We just tend to love the people that we want to, or they're mostly like us. So we talked about that. Then we talked about worship and how we tend to put God, because of loving others the way we do and the asterisk and all that, we tend to put an asterisk on God, and that we expect everybody to fit into that God box. And the whole chapter last week was about unboxing God, and that we tend to look at the primary source of bringing people to God and people to Christ is Sunday morning worship. And that's worked for generations. And it still works. It's still a very important tool, probably the most important tool we have in bringing people to Christ and Christ to people. But we have a generation of people coming up that we got to look at other ways. So keep Sunday morning. Improve on Sunday morning, make it the best opportunity we can to bring people to Christ and Christ to people, but we also have to look at other avenues as well. This week we're going to talk about fear, and we don't really know what we're doing. So it was 2 years ago this week that everything shut down because of COVID. Today is March 16th. And I remember it being the last day we had school in the district I was working in at the time. Yesterday, March 13th, was the first Sunday that Pastor Jay had delivered the message from his office because we had shut everything down for 2 weeks. And we all know what's happened since then. Fear has hit all of us in different ways and at different times throughout the last couple of years. In the first week or so, we feared that we might get COVID. And we feared that we might get someone sick, pass it on to somebody. And we feared that someone might die from it. We also feared that we were going to run out of toilet paper. I still don't get that, but guilty. We got ours too. But we all feared. And as things progressed and we were locked down even longer and all kinds of stuff happened, we tended to lash out at each other. Now, fear is a great motivator. In fact, there are some religions that teach to fear God. That when you do something wrong, God is going to lash out at you. So it's a great motivator in that way. I'm afraid of this consequence, so I better do what's right. I better do better. But fear also makes us do some unchristian-like things at times. How about in road rage? We've all been involved in road rage, either as the giver or the receiver. We never say, "Oh, you cut me off, God bless you." It's, "You when somebody cuts us off. Why? Because we like being a jerk? No, it's out of fear. We fear that something might happen. We fear that there might be an accident or some harm may be caused to us or may come to us. So we tend to lash out. Over the last couple of years, we've all experienced different kinds of fear. Like I said, we feared we were going to catch COVID. We feared that we were going to pass it on to somebody else. We feared that we might die or someone we know might die from it. We feared losing our events, our prom and dances and sporting events and weddings and family events, get-togethers. We feared losing all of that stuff. We feared the restrictions that were put on us. We feared the mandates that were put on us. We feared losing our jobs. We feared losing our incomes. We feared losing our freedoms and our way of life. And as a result, we lashed out because we thought, and still do, that one fear is more valid than another fear. And that's just not true. My fear, for example, my fear of catching COVID and passing it on to Susan or my parents or anybody else is just as valid as your fear of losing your freedom. Yet we act like one's more important than the other, don't we? Or at least that's what hits the news. Let me talk about the news. So the news is full of fear because fear sells. And for the last 2 years especially, business has been good, right? As far as media is concerned. Because there's been a lot of fear. And they've spread a lot of it. And we've eaten it up. And we've spread a lot of it. So we lash out. Because we think one fear is more important than another. And that's just not the case. In fact, we worship a God and pray to a God that we are convinced will fill our every need, that will be there for us. We believe in God in getting us through this current situation with Susan. And so do you, or you guys wouldn't be praying for us. We all believe that. And yet, we still hoarded toilet paper. Because we don't fully believe. So in page 31 of this, let me read this real quick. In some ways, the kind of isolation and restriction we've been living with during the virus outbreak has done something incredibly useful. It's renovated our collective religion by separating us geographically, taking away many of the familiar aspects of our communal spiritual existence, the superficial trappings and superfluous elements attached to the buildings we make weekly Sunday pilgrimages to. With those ultimately non-structural parts of our belief system stripped away, what's left are the foundation and the bones of what we really trust is holding all this together, which may or not be very much. Fear is helpful. It's clarifying. It's illuminating. Whether or not we claim a religious worldview at all, fear burns up what we say we believe and reveals what we actually believe about protection, sustenance, security, generosity, abundance, and community. During the pandemic, we feared we were going to lose our church. Many churches did. Churches all over the world fought against the restrictions because we feared that if we stopped going to this place on Sunday morning, we would lose our faith. So I just read. So we acted out. And we found out that we really didn't believe in God or didn't believe in faith as much as we thought we did because we believed more in the building. Now, again, I don't want anybody to read this wrong. Worship is very important. Being together, very important. I missed being with everyone as much as anyone else did. But for some of us, That became the focus, being in that building. So, out of fear of losing our faith, we treated each other kind of poorly during the process of when to come back, not to come back, and all that. And not just our church, everybody. They're doing it in schools, businesses, everything. We've all treated each other poorly. Which now brings me to, we don't really know what we're talking about. We all have a voice telling us, you don't know what you're doing, do you? I'm going to be real quick with this story. 2012, so almost 10 years ago, it'd be in September, 10 years ago, we had a little event at Godfrey First called the G Fest. And it was the year before Holy Hoopla. And Pastor Don and Jason McAtee put together this little praise band event. People came out, had a great time and all that. And then Joe got involved the following year and wanted to kick it up because I thought it could be better. So we changed the name, we bought t-shirts, we had food brought in, we had 4 or 5 different groups come in to sing, and it was a tremendous failure. It was a flop. We had more people putting it on than attended. And I have the poster of that in my office still as a reminder to stay humble, because I don't always know what I'm talking about. I have a ton of ideas. Susan's probably in there laughing right now. Ton of ideas. Some of them work great, some not so much. But I still have that poster in my office to keep me humble and remind me that not all ideas I have are the best. But we have people in our midst who think that they are right all the time. You can't sway them one way or the other. There is no give and take. And I think they think they're right out of fear. Because if they admit that they're wrong, they're going to lose something. So, they're right all the time. I talked in GPS that in the last few weeks, we had a series on dating. And in that series, there was a discussion question about how do you know when you're ready? And one of the answers that was given in the material was, you're ready to date when you're ready to break up. Because, let's face it, most relationships, especially at that age, break up. So if you don't think you can handle the emotional part of the breakup, then you're not ready to even get involved in the first place. So breakups are messy. Breakups are complicated. And they tend to reveal too much about ourselves. Because in a breakup, we all lose something. And as Pastor Jay talked on Sunday, the United Methodist Church is getting ready to go through a huge breakup. And we have people in our denomination around the world who want to dig in their heels because they're right. And I think, again, they're digging their heels because they're afraid of what they might lose. Because none of us wants to lose anything. But let's face it. At some point, we're going to have to pick one side or the other on this issue of human sexuality. And depending on where we fall, we could lose the building we worship in, or we could lose the pastor that we know, or we could lose members of our congregation, or we may end up lose friends. We're going to lose something because we're not all 100% in agreement on any of this. Hence the breakup. So before digging in your heels and standing up for what you believe is right, let me read a couple pages here. Sorry, gotta get to it. Despite our pedigree or profession or our claims of blessed assurance, none of us really knows what we're doing here. You and I and Mother Teresa and Franklin Graham and the guy on the corner with a bullhorn condemning random pedestrians and the awkward high school student handing you your value meal, we are all working with incomplete information on the infinite. And we could all use a little kindness and a bit of mercy. So as much as you or I or anybody wants to think and argue that they know this is the right way, just remember, we're all dealing with incomplete information because there's no way we can possibly comprehend the infinite God. Being sure is a nice idea, but it's highly overrated. There's danger involved in claiming any kind of moral authority or precise theological clarity other than this. Here's the best guess I can make based on the available information, though I very well may be wrong. How many conversations have you been involved with when you know you're talking to somebody who really is kind of wrong? We should go into conversations admitting that this is my stance based on the information that I have, but it's possible I could be wrong. If we go into every conversation over the next couple of years with that mindset, we will all get along much, much better, and the breakup will be amicable. I take great joy in arguing with who I was yesterday because I know 24 hours more about living than that guy did. I love that. That means you're learning something new every day. Don't dig your heels in. So I'm going to wrap with this as soon as I find the right page. I don't think there's such a thing as a religious expert, which is why I'm usually uneasy whenever I hear people elevate anyone to this position. Nobody is a religious expert. I don't care how many books you've read, how many years you devote to study, the number of letters you have following your name, how eloquent an orator you are, how well you string together written words, or how revered you are in the theological circles. The fact of the matter is that none of these things provide certainty regarding the hows and whys of this life. In fact, if you're moving with honesty in this journey of meaning, you don't end up knowing more along the way. You simply learn how little you've understood to this point, how much you've gotten wrong in the past, and you grow more reverent and aware of the wonder just beyond the measurable things. Faith isn't about surety, but about suspicions. It is an aspirational orientation, a movement towards something just slightly out of reach, something that propels you to ask and seek and knock because you don't know it all yet. There's nothing organized or neat or easy about this, so we should all invite the chaos in, make friends with it, learn to live with it, and see the imperfect process of coexisting with it as a holy act itself. Guys, over the next couple years, we are going to show our fear. And as much as anyone claims to be an expert in this side or that side, they're just not. Because none of us can fully understand the infinite God. What they're sharing is their opinion. And just like fear, their opinion is not more valid than anyone else's opinion. So let's take these next couple years, these next few weeks and months, and have civil discussions. I can promise you, I will have any discussion any of you wish to have about this. I'm hesitant to debate anything because once you debate feelings, it gets rough. And I absolutely will not argue with anyone about this. Why? It doesn't do anybody good. You can't argue feelings. So let's be nice to each other. Let's just all understand that we're all going through some fear right now in the world, in our denomination, in our church, in our communities, in our families. And let's do our best to love each other through this. And we'll all come out better in the end. Wow, that was long. I apologize. That's all I got for this week. Blessings, Godfrey First.